Right now, beneath the feet of more than 3 million people in southern Italy, something ancient is beginning to stir. Not ancient in the way we usually think, but a force that has existed for over 100,000 years, long before human civilization ever began. Campi Flegrei, a supervolcano once believed to be dormant, is now showing signs that scientists can no longer ignore. The latest data doesn't just point to risk. It suggests something far more unsettling. This system may be repeating the exact same pattern it has followed before. A cycle, a rhythm, and the most disturbing part is, we may already be inside it without even realizing. So what is really happening beneath the ground? And why has this new discovery left scientists unusually silent? Stay updated with the latest developments and follow the channel for deeper analysis in the next part. In early 2025, a quiet discovery sent shockwaves through the scientific community. A team of researchers analyzing deep geological samples beneath the Mediterranean uncovered something no one expected: a thin layer of volcanic ash, unlike anything ever recorded before. When they tested its chemical signature against global volcanic databases, the result came back with no match. It didn't belong to any known eruption in modern science. That's when the realization hit. This ash layer was evidence of a massive eruption from Campi Flegrei around 109,000 years ago, an event so powerful it spread across the Mediterranean, covering regions like Turkey, Greece, and North Africa. And yet somehow it had remained completely hidden from human knowledge until now. But this discovery wasn't just about rewriting history. It revealed something far more disturbing. When scientists placed this event alongside known eruptions from 40,000 years ago and the smaller eruption in 1538, a pattern began to emerge. And once they saw it, they couldn't unsee it. If this topic is catching your attention more than expected, just drop a 9 below. When scientists laid these events side by side, something unsettling began to take shape. The eruption from 109,000 years ago, then another around 40,000 years ago, and later the smaller but well-documented event in 1538. At first glance, they seemed separated by vast stretches of time, random, unconnected. But when the timeline was mapped carefully, a pattern started to emerge. Not a perfect predictable cycle, but a repeating rhythm. Long periods of silence followed by sudden explosive releases of energy, each phase showing similar warning signs before the eruption actually occurred. Ground movement, increasing seismic activity, gas emissions rising beyond normal levels. And then came the most disturbing part. When current data from 2025 was placed onto that same timeline, the alignment was hard to ignore. The numbers didn't just resemble the past, they mirrored it. This wasn't just history being studied. It felt like history beginning to repeat itself again. Right now, the signals coming from Campi Flegrei are no longer subtle. They are measurable, visible, and increasingly difficult to dismiss. Since 2005, the ground across the caldera has risen by over 140 centimeters, and it hasn't dropped even once. This isn't fluctuation, it's continuous uplift. Seismic activity has also intensified. The earthquake swarms recorded throughout 2024 and 2025 are the strongest ever observed here in modern history. Not isolated events, but persistent waves of pressure building beneath the surface. Then, there's the gas. Every single day, thousands of tons of carbon dioxide are being released through fumaroles, reaching levels never recorded before. Temperatures in these vents are rising, and the chemical composition is shifting in ways scientists recognize from past pre-eruption phases. And above ground, the changes are impossible to ignore. In Pozzuoli, parts of the harbor have lifted so much that boats now sit on dry land. The sea itself appears to be retreating, not because the water is moving, but because the land is rising beneath it. These aren't random anomalies. They are the same warning signs this volcano has shown before, just happening again in real time. To understand what these signals could mean, scientists looked back to the earliest event now confirmed in the record. Around 109,000 years ago, Campi Flegrei produced an eruption on a scale almost impossible to imagine today. The eruption column surged tens of kilometers into the atmosphere, spreading ash across the entire Mediterranean basin. Regions that are now Turkey, Greece, the Balkans, and North Africa were blanketed in thick, suffocating layers of volcanic material. This wasn't light dust drifting through the air. It was dense ash, capable of blocking sunlight for extended periods. Within a short time, the sky darkened across vast areas. Temperatures dropped as sunlight was filtered out, disrupting ecosystems on a continental scale. Vegetation struggled to survive, and food chains began to collapse under the pressure of sudden environmental change. What makes this event even more significant is its sheer volume. Scientists estimate that well over 100 cubic kilometers of material were released, far exceeding most eruptions recorded in human history. And until very recently, this entire event remained completely unknown. After that catastrophic eruption, everything went quiet. Not for years, but for tens of thousands of years. The ash settled deep into the earth. The sky cleared. Vegetation slowly returned, and life began to rebuild across the regions that had once been buried. From the surface, there were no visible signs of what had happened below. No earthquakes, no rising ground, no gas escaping through fractures, just stillness. To any observer, it would have looked like the system had stabilized, like whatever force had caused the destruction was gone for good. Entire landscapes recovered, and over time, even the memory of such an event would have been erased. But beneath that silence, pressure was building again. Not rapidly, not violently, but steadily. Because Campi Flegrei wasn't finished. It had simply entered the next phase of its cycle, one that gives no warning until it's already too late. Then, after tens of thousands of years of silence, Campi Flegrei entered its next phase. Around 40,000 years ago, the system reached a breaking point. And this time, the scale was even more devastating. The ground didn't just crack, it collapsed. In a matter of hours, a massive caldera formed miles wide and carved deep into what had once been solid land. From that collapse came an eruption that released enormous volumes of magma, sending superheated clouds of gas, ash, and rock racing outward at extreme speeds. These pyroclastic flows moved faster than anything could escape. Temperatures reached levels capable of incinerating everything in their path instantly. There was no warning that could have saved anything within range. Ash from this eruption didn't stay local. It spread across vast regions of Europe. Layers from this event have been identified in places like Eastern Europe and the Black Sea region, marking just how far-reaching the impact truly was. Some scientists believe this single eruption may have played a role in the disappearance of Neanderthal populations, a second event, a second collapse, and the same system behind it. Before the modern era, Campi Flegrei gave one of its clearest warnings in 1538. For weeks leading up to the event, the signs were building, but slowly enough that many people chose to stay. Small earthquakes began to occur daily. Not strong, but persistent. The ground around Pozzuoli started to rise almost imperceptibly at first. Fishermen noticed something unusual. Their boats were sitting higher than normal, as if the sea itself was pulling away. At the same time, the smell of sulfur in the air intensified. Water temperatures increased. The land felt unstable, but life continued. Then, in a single night, the surface broke open. Over the next 6 days, a new volcanic cone formed from nothing, rising rapidly from flat ground. What had been stable land suddenly transformed into an active eruption site. The warning signs were there. They just weren't understood in time. Now compare those warning signs to what is happening today. The same ground uplift, the same persistent earthquake swarms, the same increase in gas emissions and rising temperatures beneath the surface. Even the same visual change, harbor levels, shifting land, rising, the coastline subtly transforming. This is no longer a distant historical pattern. It is happening again. What makes this moment different is not the signals themselves, but how closely they match what came before. The sequence, the intensity, the progression. All of it follows a path that has already been recorded in this system. And that is what makes scientists uneasy. Because when a volcanic system begins to repeat known pre-eruption behavior with this level of accuracy, it stops being theoretical. It becomes something measurable, observable, and potentially unavoidable. The question is no longer whether these signs are real. The question is how far along the process we already are. Beyond the data, the real weight of the situation comes down to people. Right now, around 400,000 residents live directly inside the Campi Flegrei caldera. Beyond that, nearly 3 million more live within the surrounding high-risk zone, including the densely populated city of Naples. These are not isolated communities. They are homes, families, entire lives built on ground that is slowly changing beneath them. After the earthquake swarms in 2025, hundreds of families in the most exposed areas were told to leave immediately. Many left with only what they could carry, uncertain if they would ever return. For some, this is no longer a distant scientific concern. It is a daily reality. Decisions are no longer theoretical. They are personal. Stay or leave. Wait or act. And with each passing day, that choice becomes more difficult to ignore. On paper, there is a plan. Italy has developed a detailed evacuation strategy for Campi Flegrei, complete with designated zones, mapped routes, and official procedures. It looks organized, structured, and ready. But the reality on the ground tells a different story. The main evacuation routes from the highest risk areas pass directly through Naples, one of the most densely populated and congested cities in Europe. In a normal situation, traffic alone can slow movement to a crawl. In an emergency with hundreds of thousands trying to leave at once, delays would be unavoidable. And time is the one thing this scenario may not allow. Scientists monitoring the volcano have openly acknowledged a critical concern. If a fast-moving event like a pyroclastic flow begins, while evacuation is still underway, there may not be enough time to clear the area. A plan exists, but whether it can work when it matters most remains uncertain. 3 major events, one system, and the same sequence repeating each time. A long period of silence followed by pressure building beneath the surface. Then the signals begin, ground rising and earthquakes, increasing gases escaping. And finally, a sudden release, powerful enough to reshape everything above it. Campi Flegrei has already followed this pattern more than once, and now the same signals are appearing again. The only difference this time is not the volcano. It's us. For the first time, we can see the signs as they happen. We can measure them, analyze them, and understand what they might mean. But that awareness comes with a difficult question. If a system has repeated the same behavior across thousands of years, and the same conditions are forming again today, does knowing what's coming actually change the outcome? Or does it simply mean we are watching it happen in real time? Stay connected for the next updates as they unfold. Subscribe to the channel for real-time coverage, deeper breakdowns, and verified data you won't easily find elsewhere. Turn on notifications so you don't miss what comes next.